Hey class, thanks for tuning in for another Mr. Huddleston Reads Crash. We are on chapter 35. And if you remember last time, Scooter had a stroke. He's been in the hospital, but he is coming back home. And Penn Webb left the Missouri River mud, that there's a legend that it can help heal people. Left that for Crash. And I think Crash was kind of surprised and kind of moved by that, um, by Penn showing such kindness and friendship, even how Crash has acted towards him. So this is chapter 35, January 9th. Back to school was a little like the first day after summer vacation. Everybody's showing off their new stuff. Mike drew a crowd with his sneakers. Mike said he has a new spiderweb caper, something to do with tricking him into eating meat. I told him I wasn't interested. The second day back, I came around a corner and bumped into Forbes. I don't even look at her anymore, so I just keep walking. Behind me, I heard her say, "Sorry to hear about your grandfather." We were allowed to see him yesterday. He's not at the hospital anymore. He's at the rehab place. We're supposed to teach him how to walk. They're supposed to teach him how to walk and feed himself and get dressed and all. He was supposed to be in room 23. My parents pushed me and Abby ahead into the room. There were two beds. Somebody was in the one by the window, and the other was empty, and I whispered to my mother, "He's not here." "Sure he is," she whispered. "There." She was nodding toward the man in the bed by the window. Abby was already running over, but I still couldn't believe it. "That's him?" She squeezed my shoulder, and we went over. Abby was on the bed, jabbering away. He was propped up on the pillow. His face, everything was different. He was bony, like he was starving. His mouth was sort of crooked, like he was smirking, only I knew he wasn't. His right arm was on his lap, and I thought something was weird, and then I realized that it was the hand. It was resting palm up, and the fingers half curled. It looked dead. He kept staring at Abby while she jabbered on, and he didn't blink. He didn't seem to notice the rest of us. My mother leaned down and kissed him. "Hi, Daddy." His unblinking eyes rolled up to her. "Your favorite grandson is here, too." She stepped aside, and he was looking at me. Or he was looking at the spot where I happened to be. "Hi, Scooter," I said. I started to shake hands, and then I remembered the flopped arm and pulled back. His mouth opened like he was going to talk, but all that came out was a drop of drool. My mother wiped it away. Abby started yapping again, but he kept his eyes on me. For a second, I thought I saw him in there, the old Scooter, trying to get out. Suddenly, Abby shut up and looked down and smiled. His good hand was clamped tight around her wrist. In the car going home, Abby said, "Will Scooter be better by February 1st?" "That's your birthday," said my mother. "I know, will he?" "Not all better. It takes a long time to recover from a stroke." "How about baking? Will he at least be able to do that?" "I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be working in the kitchen for quite a while." "Why, are you afraid I'll fire Mrs. Linford and start cooking myself?" "Mom hired Mrs. Linford a couple days ago. She's supposed to come one day a week and clean the house and do the wash, and 3 days to cook dinner for Abby and me. So far, she made one dinner for us. It stunk." Abby groaned. "I wanted him to make catfish cakes for me to take to school for my birthday." My mother told her, "We'll get you something nice for the bakery to take in." Abby whined, "I don't want that. It won't be the same. I want catfish cakes." She kicked the back of my seat. "I won't have a party." She was crying. He's never gonna call me Swabby again." Later, I felt clammy in the house, so I took myself for a walk. It was almost dark when I got back. I still didn't feel like going in, and I wandered into the backyard, as backyards go. Ours is pretty big, bigger than Uncle Herm's, or Mike's anyway, bigger than the Webb's whole property. There's 10 or 15 trees and lots of bushes and stuff along the edges. And the dollhouse. I thought I saw something in the front of it. I went over. There was a cardboard sign, scotch taped to the front. It read, "Mouse House." I knelt down to look inside. Furniture was in there, tiny chairs and tables and beds and a kitchen stove. The dining room table was about 2 inches long and had 4 chairs around it with legs as skinny as toothpicks. On top of the table was the very end tip of a slice of pizza. As I got up from the mouse house, something in the bushes caught my eye. I looked closer. It was a pile of sticks, about the size of a heaping plate of spaghetti. 10 feet away, you'd never see it. I walked along the line of bushes. There was another stick pile, and there, and all along 3 sides of the yard. As I headed for the house, I saw another one under a tree, right next to the trunk, and I checked out the other trees. About every other one had a pile. Before going into the house, I turned back to look. Not a stick pile in sight. The ones by the trees were on the far sides. You couldn't see them from the house, even in broad daylight. I don't know why, but I just stood there for a minute. The leaves were long gone from the trees. Some of the bare branches were forked and jagged. They looked like black lightning against a sky smeared with raspberry jam. This morning, when I left for school, I stopped to check Mouse House. The pizza tip was gone. The tiny table didn't have a crumb left. Chapter 36, February 1st. My mom had gone off to work as soon as she woke up. My dad was away on business, and Mrs. Linfort wasn't in yet, and me and Abby were in the kitchen with 4 boxes of cookies from Hannah's bakery. Abby smacked one of the boxes. I told her not to get anything. I told her I won't take them in. She clawed one of the balloons my mother had gotten for the party store. It popped. I was waiting for her to attack with big happy birthday Abby sign. I won't, she growled again. So don't, I said. I won't. I reached under the sink and pulled out a plastic bag. Take these. The grump fell from her face, and she looked at me. She looked in the bag, and she looked back at me. What are they? What do you think? I said. Catfish cakes. Her eyes bulged. Scooter made them? She looked so happy I almost lied. No, I said. I did. She looked at me like, what's this alien life form doing in my house? She looked into the bag again. She pulled one out. Her whole face squished in her nose. These aren't catfish cakes. They look like baby doodles. Catfish cakes are mostly just regular brownies, and what Scooter would do was make catfish faces by squeezing a string of white icing into each one. I had made them in Mike's microwave the day before. Maybe I'm not the world's greatest artist, but they look like catfish faces to me, I said. I had thought she would be glad. Instead, she slammed the brownies down and blubbered, Well, they're not, and stomped out of the house. Mike took his football laundry bag to school today. I got news for you, I told him. The season ended 3 months ago. He grinned. I got news for you. He pulled me over to the lockers, and he opened up the bag a little. I looked in, and inside was a squirt gun. You're going to get suspended, I said. He closed the bag, and he stared at me. You're really acting weird. I felt my neck getting warm. What do you mean by that? I don't know. You're just acting different. Like when I said let's trick Webb, you told me you weren't interested. And like this. He swung the bag at my face. You never would have said, he made his voice all prissy, you're gonna get suspended. I pushed the bag into his face. I didn't say it like that. He backed off. You said it. It's like you don't want to do nothing no more. You're a dud, man. I grabbed a fistful of his shirt and pushed it up to his chin and forced his head back. Am I a dud now? We had never fought each other for real, but we both know who would win if we did. He looked down his nose. His face practically tilted to the ceiling, and he croaked. You ain't a dud. He gulped. Let me go, man. I pushed him into the lockers and went to homeroom. This afternoon, a block from school, a bunch of kids were yelling and hooting near the stop sign. As I got closer, I could see between the heads enough to know it was DeLuca and Webb, and I could hear the splatter of the squirt gun. I kept walking. I knew what was happening. Mike was firing away, sogging Webb from head to toe, and Webb was standing there taking it, like the day he refused to have a squirt gun fight with me. I could tell when Mike was missing. The shots would ping off the stop sign. Was Mike right? Was I a dud? Why wasn't I joining the mob and hooting with the rest of them? Why wasn't I jabbing a squirt gun and pumping a couple of rounds into a victim myself? In fact, I did feel like grabbing a squirt gun, but I felt more like shooting DeLuca than Webb. Did that make me a dud? Did others see me that way? Crash Coogan, the Crash Man. Suddenly, the name didn't seem to fit exactly. I'd always thought my name and me were the same thing. Now, there was a crack of daylight between them, like my shell was coming loose. It was scary. When I looked back, the mob was a block behind me. Tonight, when I came back from the bathroom to go to bed, I found a note on the blanket. It was from Abby. It said, "I'm sorry I was mean this morning. I guess I was being a big baby. Thank you for making catfish cakes for me, even if they didn't look like catfish." Okay, I'm going to stop there. Looks like Crash is going through stuff. Looks like Abby is going through stuff. Looks like Mike DeLuca is still being mean to Penn. So it's really interesting. What I love so much about this book is watching Crash change and develop over his time in seventh grade. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and tune in next time.